Right now, across the sprawling cities of China, a war is raging. But this isn't a war with soldiers and tanks. It's a war fought with delivery riders, with discount codes, and it's happening right on your doorstep. This is the war for the doorstep, a high-stakes corporate battle for total control of the food you order every single day. So you've got two of the country's absolute tech titans, Meituan and JD.com, and they are locked in this just brutal, all-out price war. And what are they fighting for? Well, it's dominance over the massive billion-dollar food delivery market. But the cost of this fight it's just staggering. It really raises the one critical question: who is going to survive? And look, make no mistake, this is not just some healthy competition. This is what you'd call a value-destructive war. I mean, as they're fighting for every single order, every last customer, they're not just burning cash, they are literally incinerating their own profits. And of course, they're watching their stock prices get absolutely punished in the process. Okay, so let's break down the two sides of this war. First up, we've got the defender, Meituan. Now, for the longest time, Meituan was the reigning champion, the undisputed king of local commerce. But now they're being forced into a really desperate last stand. I mean, just look at how fast everything turned upside down for them. All through 2024, Meituan was living in this golden era. We're talking high-quality growth, peak efficiency, and then, bam, the second quarter of 2025 hits. This was the critical moment. Management even called it irrational competition. Their profitability, which had just peaked, suddenly went into a complete vertical freefall. And by the third quarter, the capitulation was total. The business wasn't a profit engine anymore. It had become a loss-making, purely defensive play.
So just how bad is the damage? Well, try this on for size, a negative 20.9% operating margin for their main business, their core local commerce segment. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The very heart of their company, the thing that's supposed to make all the money, is now just hemorrhaging cash at an absolutely alarming rate.
So you have to ask, what's their strategy here? Well, it's what's known as a Scorched Earth defense. It's a classic military tactic, right? You destroy anything that the enemy might find useful. In the business world, it means Meituan is intentionally burning its own profits, just torching its own margins, all to make the market so painful, so unbearable that its new rival just can't get a foothold. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This isn't just some analyst speculation. The signal is coming directly from Meituan's own leadership. In their report, they literally say that management expects the operating loss trend to persist. So this isn't some temporary dip. No way. This is the new, painful reality they are bracing for. All right, so now let's flip over to the other side of the battlefield and talk about the attacker, JD.com. Now, these guys are an absolute giant in e-commerce, but they're a total newcomer to food delivery. And their entry into this market, it's not some small test. It is a full-scale, billion-dollar invasion, a truly massive strategic gamble. So you might be wondering, how in the world can JD.com even afford a war like this? Well, the answer is pretty simple when you think of them as two different businesses. On one hand, you've got JD Retail. That's their cash cow. It's an incredibly efficient, highly profitable e-commerce machine. And on the other hand, you've got the big gamble, their new food delivery business, which is just burning through cash. So they're basically funding this war with the massive profits from their established empire. And this chart, it really tells the whole story. On one side, you have their new businesses. That includes food delivery, which was running at a staggering negative 106.7% margin. But at the exact same time, their core JD retail business was humming along, posting a really healthy 5.9% positive margin. It's just a perfect visual of the cash cow funding this massive gamble. You better believe their leadership is confident about this whole strategy. Their CEO, Sandy Zhu, she points to the strength of their core business, even calling it a growth matrix. See, this isn't a company that's fighting for survival. Not at all. This is a company on the offensive, using its established fortress to launch an entirely new campaign. But, of course, an invasion like this has a price, and it is a steep one. You could call it the entry fee to the market. Just look at their war chest, which is basically their corporate savings. Before this big offensive kicked off, they had about 39.4 billion RMB. But just 1 year later, after launching this food delivery war, that war chest has shrunk all the way down to 12.6 billion. They have burned through billions just to buy their seat at this table. Okay, so this all brings us to the final critical question, the standoff. On one side, you've got the defender, Meituan, basically burning its own house down to stop the enemy. On the other, you have the attacker, JD, funding the war straight from its treasury. The winner here isn't going to be who fights the smartest, it's going to be who can afford to bleed the longest. So let's look at the tail of the tape. Here's how they stack up. Core profitability, Meituan is at a disastrous negative 20.9%, while JD's retail core is a healthy positive 5.9%. What about revenue growth? Meituan has totally stalled out at 2%, while JD's attack is fueling almost 15% growth. And the war chest burn? Well, Meituan is bleeding from its main artery, its core business. JD is bleeding from its savings, sure, but its heart is still pumping strong. It's no wonder the management tone reflects all this. Meituan is cautious and defensive, while JD is confident and on the offensive. And that's where we're left. You've got the defender, Meituan, bleeding from its core profit engine. That's a mortal wound, right to the heart. Then you have the attacker, JD.com, bleeding from its savings. It's a deep cut, for sure, but maybe, just maybe, it's a manageable one. The war for the doorstep isn't about being the smartest anymore. It's about being the last one standing. So the only real question left is, who bleeds out first?